JoshCast, dun 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 dun. No, it's the podcast that just won't die. Dun 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 dun. Oh, it's the podcast that should not be happening. Dun 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 dun. JoshCast, dun 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 dun. JoshCast, dun 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 dun. All right, so I've decided that I'm going to record this podcast instead of going to buy Skittles at 7-Eleven. My stomach is already bothering me. I could still go and eat Skittles. I could do it right now. I could muscle through it and have a very painful experience in the morning as opposed to a moderately painful experience, which is going to probably happen. I'm not sure if this is the right subject for a podcast. I'm not sure if this is the right subject for anyone to be discussing at any point. I will say, though, that I don't know, maybe I do need to start dating. I just feel like here's the problem. Here's the problem with me dating right now. Everyone becomes annoyed by me sooner or later. I have verifiable evidence. It doesn't matter who you ask. Sooner or later, I will annoy anybody. It's just my nature. I don't think I've ever not annoyed anybody. And I guess my thinking is that until I can not annoy people, I hesitate to put someone in the position where they will be annoyed. Because why would somebody knowingly want to be annoyed? I don't want to be knowingly annoyed. There are people who I've met who I can tell are annoying, and I steer clear of them. I would not want to be in a relationship with them. The only way I would feel okay being in a relationship with someone at this point is if they knew exactly the worst parts about me as soon as possible and signed off on it. Literally signed off on it with some kind of a non-disclaimer form, or not non-disclaimer, that they can talk about me to bill in the face, a consent form. I want someone to sign a form that says, I understand that Josh is a neurotic person and can be annoying. And in spite of the recommendation of several medical professionals, I have decided to go through with this relationship and be with this person. And I would want to make sure that they sign it in triplicate. Just because I would want a copy as well. You always have to make sure you have copies. I mean, it would be okay if they approved via email because you can keep the email chain, but I would prefer a more formalized document. I think it needs to be co-signed. I think anyone who goes out with me, if they go out with me, they need to approach it the way that a nuclear submarine launches a nuclear weapon. In other words, when the submarine has to launch the nuclear weapon, the captain and the commander have to have their separate keys that they have to turn at the same time in order to launch the nukes. That's what I want. I want the woman, or maybe the man, because I might be possibly bisexual. I'll address that later, but for now we'll go with woman, because why not? But what I want is for a woman to have her best friend there with her, and both of them have to agree that this woman should date me, and there needs to be a witness present saying, yeah, I see he's a train wreck too, but if that's what you want, that is what I need to feel okay. And then I feel like I can be myself. Because I feel like I can't be myself with people. Because if I am myself, I'm neurotic. And when I'm neurotic, I'm annoying. So I can tell the people are annoyed when I get neurotic. So I have two choices. Either I stop being neurotic and find a way to be calm, or I die alone. And I gotta say that dying alone at this point, I mean, it's certainly the easier of the two. I think it's the most feasible. I don't know how. I do know how to not be annoying. The key is not to talk. To do the opposite of what I'm doing with this podcast. That's how I'm not annoying. To to not talk and only say what other people want to hear and never express my feelings. That's really, I think that's the key. Now feels like a good time for a transition. I'm trying to record the podcast with my eyes closed so that I am not being distracted by external stimuli of any kind, and I can kind of go on a more stream of consciousness mode of thinking and just kind of see what happens stream of consciousness wise. And the thing that comes to me is the monster who was in the most recent Doctor Who adventure program that I was watching, which was basically a beautiful dead woman. And that's the image that's in my head right now, which tells me where I'm at in terms of my libido. I don't want to get into a conversation about necrophilia, but I feel like the conversation kind of came to me just in this last moment, and I don't want to gloss over that either. I do not like the idea of necrophilia in the slightest. Again, unless they gave consent when they were still alive, but that's hard to prove in court. Transition. Am I gay? I don't know. I do know. I'm not. I know I'm attracted to women. Here and there, I'm attracted to men. That's all there is to it. I don't know what the term for that is. I don't like bisexual, as I've said before, because I don't feel like I'm exactly 50-50. And I don't like the term bicurious because I'm not curious about my feelings. The only thing I'm curious about is why society has to be a giant dick. That's my concern more than anything. Why? Why are we so worried about the things that we're worried about? Why is a person's sexual orientation such a problem for a large group of people, typically religious organizations? Why is that the fuse that lights all the fires when there are bigger problems that I feel like they need to be addressed by everybody? And I just don't understand that. I don't get it. The one thing I do know is that I've felt uncomfortable around any group of people that's different than the norm. I've noticed that, and I hate that about myself. Why do I feel that way? Why does that happen? Perhaps it's because is it our monkey brains? We're trained to categorize everything. Is that what it is? I just don't know what to make of it. And I don't take any chances. Like, I'm recording this podcast now. Like, my idea of unwinding this evening was to watch a movie, and I'm to the point now where I'm recording this podcast and I'm just too dang tired. Now, the problem is I was closing my eyes while I was doing that. I'm not sure if this will be heard too well. I'm not speaking very loudly. But I'm just suddenly getting really tired, and that's not what anyone who's listening to the podcast wants to hear. Oh, he's getting tired. I don't know how you're continuing to listen. I feel like I need to say something more substantial, but the only thing I can come up with is science fiction movies at this point, which are always an enjoyable prospect to talk about. Science fiction is I don't think science fiction's cool now, right? Or is it still, I feel like it's cool, but there's still an asterisk next to it. You can say with Star Trek. Star Trek is cool, however, cool people reserve the right to drop it at any second. I feel like that's in the fine print for Star Trek right now. That it's, that at any point someone could, with the right credentials, could reverse that policy and suddenly tell everyone else they're nerds for it. That's the question. That's the question. Is it nerdy? Is it nerdy to watch Star Trek? I think it is, but then again, that could be a generational thing. I mean, anyone who's 18 or 19 might think it's totally normal, and in fact, cool. And to those people, I say, where were you 18 years ago? Well, I know where you were. You weren't here. You were in the process of the process of coitus. That's where you were. Or as my parents would say, you were a glint in your father's eye. Because your father, for some reason, apparently enjoys staring directly into the light. This is the end of the podcast, the end of the podcast, and the children sing and the children play. This is the end of the podcast.